Okay, last story of the week, gout. A little bit of this stuff going on, people overindulging during the lockdown period. Apparently plenty of people drinking more, eating more, and weight gain. So, 5 things you didn't know about gout, or you might not have known about gout. Well, gout traditionally was considered the disease of the affluent, the wealthy, because it only ever happened to people who had, those sort of good diets, eating lots of meat, drinking lots of alcohol, etc. Didn't happen to poor people. Well, these days it's commonplace. Anyone can get it. If you've ever had it, you certainly don't want to get a second dose. Commonly it goes to the big toe first, and people have had big toes. I'm not kidding you, like an orange. They couldn't walk. Really struggled to try and get a shoe on because it was just so enlarged, red, and extraordinarily painful. Triggered by uric acid crystals getting into the joint and causing a lot of irritation in there. So there are a couple of drugs around that are used as treatment for it. Colchicine is probably the most common one that you'll come across. But here's a couple of things that you might not know that can be triggers for bringing a gout attack. Fructose. Now, fructose is the primary sugar in fruits. So ironically, having a lot of fruit juice, thinking you're doing the right thing, can actually bring on gout attacks and actually be detrimental. So going easy on the morning orange juice could be advisable for some. Most seafood. Seafood is high in purines. Purines are known to trigger gout attacks. Even stuff that we would say are healthy seafood like sardines and salmon have been listed as high purine sources and potential triggers. There you go. Red wine, a lot of us sort of know that. All alcohols are known as triggers, but there was a lot of research around that said, oh, alcohols do it, but wines don't. It's all pretty good. This stuff is still around and you can still read it, but it's pretty well known. Anyone who treats gout, they'll tell you the story that red wine in particular can be a real trigger. Some people are a lot more sensitive than others. It doesn't take much at all, so you don't have to have a whole bottle, but not much more than a couple of mouthfuls. For some people, it just really stirs them up. Dehydration. So not drinking enough fluid. So keeping plenty of water in you is the real clue. As you become dehydrated, the concentration of uric acid goes up in your bloodstream, so the crystals precipitate out a lot easier. Where this gets on interesting is we know that things like coffees and teas, they can be a diuretic and lead to dehydration if you're not careful. And like all good things on coffee research, there is no definitive answer. There is pros and there is cons. So with the mixed research, some findings showed that an increased excretion of uric acid was with coffee intake, but conversely they've shown that enzymes in coffee compete with the breaking down of uric acid, so therefore that can increase the concentration. Also conflicting evidence, caffeinated versus decaf. So if it doesn't stir you up, that's okay. If it does stir you up, don't do it. Test and measure. The basis of all science. And finally, irony, gout medicines. So colchicine, ironically. So in the first few months of taking some of those gout drugs, they can actually induce attacks. So whilst longer term they can be beneficial, in your first couple of months you may be inclined to throw that box out going, this crap didn't work, I've had an attack 2 weeks after taking it. Apparently it's just a thing. So there we go. We've learned a little bit about gout. Certainly question when anyone says don't do it, don't take that, see an expert, because there might be some very, very, very good reasons as to why we've recommended taking things like vitamin D, K2, magnesium, etc., our go-to nutrients, as opposed to someone that just goes, oh look, if it's a nutritional thing it doesn't help, don't take it, it will only interfere. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of research around on both sides of medicine. If you only read selected stuff, you're going to have a slanted view, and unfortunately that might not be to the benefit of you, family, friends, and even some of our small furry animals. MyActive, we've been using it on dogs and get fantastic results, but trying to find vets who will actually give us a bit of a trial with it, not a happening thing. Closest we got was a pet kennel. They slipped it to a few dogs who were there for a stay with arthritis, and reports were 100% of dogs that took it showed more freedom, range movement, less pain. So you don't need a placebo there. The dogs didn't know.